The morning mist clung to the forest floor like a whispered secret when Ursa first found them. The massive brown bear had been foraging for late summer berries when she heard the sounds, tiny whimpers and cries that tugged at something deep within her maternal heart. Following the sounds through the dense undergrowth, she discovered them huddled together beneath a fallen oak. A golden lion cub no bigger than her paw, a silver-gray wolf pup with eyes that hadn't yet opened, and most surprising of all, a coal-black mustang foal whose legs were still too wobbly to support his small frame. They were orphans, each one. The lion cub's mane was barely a fuzzy promise, his golden coat matted with mud and hunger. The wolf pup shivered despite the warm morning, his mother's milk still a recent memory. The mustang foal, barely days old, had somehow survived on his own, a miracle that spoke to the wild resilience running in his veins. Ursa's own cubs had been lost to a harsh winter 2 seasons ago, and the ache in her chest had never fully healed. But looking down at these 3 unlikely companions, she felt something shift inside her massive chest. Her maternal instincts, dormant but never dead, surged to life. Without hesitation, she gathered them close with her gentle mouth, carrying each one back to her den carved into the hillside. Those first weeks were a testament to nature's adaptability. Ursa's milk sustained them all, though she had to be creative in her feeding methods. The lion cub, with his golden coat that caught sunlight even in shadow, was eager and bold, often pushing his way to the front during feeding time. The wolf pup, silvery for seeming to glow in moonlight, was more cautious but equally determined. The mustang foal presented the greatest challenge. His long legs made nursing awkward, but his spirit was unbreakable. His coat was black as midnight, and wild energy seemed to dance around him even when he slept. As autumn painted the forest in brilliant oranges and golds, the 3 began to show their distinct personalities. The lion cub was the natural leader, brave to the point of recklessness, always the first to explore new areas of their territory. His attempts at roaring, still more squeaks than anything intimidating, would echo through the den as he proclaimed his dominance over imaginary prey. The wolf pup was the strategist, watching and learning, his keen intelligence evident in how he studied everything with those piercing yellow eyes. When danger approached, it was the wolf who first sensed it, his ears twitching with an awareness that seemed to transcend his young age. The mustang foal was pure energy incarnate, his powerful legs already carrying him in playful gallops around the den, his black coat gleaming with health and vitality. Winter's approach brought new challenges. Ursa knew that her unusual family would need to learn survival skills that no single species could teach them. She began their education with the patience of a born teacher. To the lion cub, she demonstrated the art of the stalk, though his natural feline instincts made him an eager student. His pounces became more precise, his timing more perfect with each passing day. For the wolf pup, she emphasized tracking, watching with pride as he learned to use his nose to read the stories left by every creature that passed through their territory. The mustang foal presented a unique challenge. His herbivorous nature meant different lessons entirely, focused on identifying safe plants and understanding the subtle language of the wind and weather. The first snow fell early that year, blanketing their world in pristine white. Ursa watched from the den entrance as her 3 adopted children experienced winter's magic for the first time. The lion cub leaped and pounced at the falling flakes, his golden coat a striking contrast against the white. The wolf pup moved more cautiously, his wild instincts telling him that winter meant hardship and danger. The mustang foal bucked and pranced, his hooves throwing up clouds of powder as he celebrated the season's beauty with uninhibited joy. But winter also brought visitors. A pack of wolves, traveling through their territory, caught the wolf pup's scent and came to investigate. Ursa positioned herself protectively in front of her family, her massive form a clear warning. The pack leader, an aging gray wolf with scars across his muzzle, studied the strange scene before him. His eyes lingered on the wolf pup, recognition flickering in their depths. The scent was unmistakably wolf, but everything else was wrong. The pup stayed close to a bear, showed no fear of a lion, and displayed none of the submission rituals that should have been instinctive. Ursa's response was a low growl that shook snow from the nearby trees, her body language making her message clear. The standoff lasted several tense moments. The wolf pup, still small but filled with quiet dignity, stepped forward and met the pack leader's gaze directly. There was no submission in his posture, but neither was there challenge. He simply stood between his adoptive family and his biological heritage, his choice evident in every line of his young body. The wolf pack retreated, but the pack leader's final look at the young wolf carried a weight that spoke of future reckonings. Some bonds, his expression seemed to say, could not be so easily dismissed. Spring arrived with an explosion of green and the music of returning songbirds. Now a year old, the three siblings had grown significantly, though they remained smaller than they would have been with their birth parents. The lion's mane was beginning to show the first hints of the magnificent crown it would become. The wolf had developed the lean, powerful build of his species, his silver coat now thick and lustrous. The mustang had grown into his legs, becoming a creature of breathtaking beauty and grace. Their bond had only deepened during the long winter months. They had developed their own system of communication through body language, scent, and sound, a complex interplay that transcended species barriers. When the lion stalked, the wolf would position himself to drive prey in the right direction, while the mustang's keen hearing would alert them to approaching danger through subtle changes in his stance and ear position. When the mustang grazed in the meadows, his brothers formed a protective perimeter, the lion watching for ground threats while the wolf scanned for aerial dangers through scent and sound. Ursa observed their cooperation with a mixture of pride and growing concern. They were becoming too comfortable with each other, too dependent on their unusual family unit. Soon, they would need to understand their individual natures and learn to survive as their species demanded. The wild world beyond their territory would not be as accepting as their sheltered valley. The lesson began with humans. A wildlife research team, drawn by reports of unusual animal behavior in the region, had set up their equipment near their territory. Their presence disrupted the delicate balance of their forest home, sending prey animals fleeing and attracting the attention of other predators displaced from their normal hunting grounds. Ursa made the difficult decision to relocate her family deeper into the wilderness, to a place she had discovered years ago, a hidden valley where a crystal-clear stream wound between ancient pines, where meadows full of wildflowers provided grazing for the mustang, and where caves offered shelter and den sites for the others. The journey took 3 days, and it was during this migration that the siblings truly began to understand the wider world beyond their sheltered upbringing. They encountered other animals who reacted to their unusual family with mixtures of confusion, fear, and sometimes hostility. A territorial grizzly bear challenged Ursa's right to travel with what his nose told him were predators and prey traveling together. A mountain lion, catching the young lion's scent, followed them for miles, perhaps recognizing something familiar yet different about the golden cat who moved with the fluid grace of his species but showed none of the territorial aggression that should have been natural. Most significantly, they encountered humans for the first time directly. A group of hikers spotted them crossing a meadow, and the humans' reaction was immediate and loud. Cameras flashed, voices rose in excitement and fear, and within moments, their peaceful journey had become a chaotic flight to safety. The experience left all of them shaken, particularly the mustang, whose instincts screamed that humans meant capture and confinement. Their new home in the hidden valley proved to be paradise. The isolation gave them space to grow and explore their individual natures without outside interference. The lion began making longer solo expeditions, his hunting skills developing rapidly as his body grew stronger and more powerful. His roar, no longer a squeak, echoed through the valley with increasing authority. The wolf spent hours perfecting his hunting techniques, but he also displayed an unusual trait. He began bringing his kills back to share with his family, behavior that blended his pack instincts with the generosity he had learned from his bear mother. The mustang discovered his own form of contribution. His exceptional hearing and ability to sense changes in weather patterns made him the family's early warning system. More than once, his urgent snorting and pawing alerted them to approaching storms or the presence of dangerous predators in their territory. 2 years passed in their hidden paradise. The siblings were now young adults, each impressive in their own right. The lion had grown into a magnificent specimen, his mane full and golden, his body powerful and graceful. Every movement spoke of controlled power, of a predator at the height of his capabilities. The wolf was equally formidable, his silver coat marked with darker patterns that made him blend seamlessly into shadows. His yellow eyes missed nothing, and his lean form moved with the deadly efficiency of a master hunter. The mustang had become a stunning creature, his black coat gleaming with health, his eyes bright with intelligence, and the wildness that ran in his blood like liquid fire. But paradise, like childhood, could not last forever. The crisis came from an unexpected source. A severe drought had gripped the region, driving desperate animals into their valley in search of water. Among them was a pack of wolves, not the respectful pack they had encountered years earlier, but a hungry, aggressive group pushed to desperation by the failing rains. The pack's leader was a battle-scarred wolf whose cruelty was evident in every line of his massive frame. When he discovered their wolf living with a bear and sharing territory with a lion and horse, his response was swift and violent. The scent markings around the territory told a story that enraged him. Here was a wolf who had forgotten his place in the natural order, who lived as prey rather than predator. The confrontation that followed would test every bond the family had forged over 4 years together. The scarred leader launched himself at their wolf, intending to either force submission or eliminate what he saw as an abomination. But he had not counted on the strength of the bonds that held this unusual family together. The lion's roar shook the valley as he leaped to his brother's defense, his powerful jaws catching the attacking wolf mid-leap and sending him sprawling. The mustang's hooves struck out at the other wolves, his equine strength surprising them with its effectiveness. Their wolf fought with a ferocity that honored his species while protecting the family that had raised him, his movements a deadly dance that spoke of both wild heritage and learned loyalty. But it was Ursa who ended the conflict. Rising to her full height, the massive bear's presence dominated the battlefield. Her roar was primal, ancient, carrying the authority of the wilderness itself. The power radiating from her enormous frame, combined with the clear loyalty of her unusual offspring, finally penetrated the attacking pack's aggression. Wounded and defeated, the rival pack retreated, but the damage was done. The secret of their valley had been discovered, and word would spread through the animal networks of the region. Their peaceful isolation was over. In the aftermath of the battle, as they tended to their wounds and reflected on what had transpired, Ursa felt a deep sadness settle in her chest. Her children were no longer cubs who needed her protection. They were strong, capable adults who had proven their loyalty to each other in the most challenging circumstances possible. But they were also wild animals with their own destinies to fulfill, and she could no longer protect them from the conflicts their unusual bond would inevitably create. The decision, when it came, arose naturally from their shared understanding. They had outgrown their valley, outgrown the safety of isolation. The world beyond beckoned, challenging and dangerous, but also full of possibilities they had never imagined. The lion was the first to venture beyond their boundaries, his natural confidence driving him to explore the territories beyond their valley. He returned days later with stories told through scent and body language, of vast savannas where creatures like him roamed, of pride dynamics he didn't fully understand but felt drawn to investigate. His expeditions grew longer, though he always returned to his family. The wolf began displaying behaviors that spoke of internal conflict. His howls, once joyful expressions shared with his siblings, became longer and more mournful, carrying notes that seemed to call to something far beyond their valley. He would sit for hours on the highest ridge, his nose testing the wind for scents that carried messages from the larger wolf community scattered across the mountains. The mustang felt it too, the pull of his heritage. His dreams were filled with running, with the sensation of wind across open plains and the thunder of hooves on hard ground. He would gallop the length of their valley, but it was never enough. His body craved distances that their sheltered home could never provide. The change came gradually, naturally. Their expeditions from the valley became longer, their returns less frequent. But unlike the typical pattern of young animals leaving their mother, they remained connected, their unusual family bond adapting to encompass greater distances and different lifestyles. The lion discovered a pride of his own kind living in the foothills beyond their valley. His integration was slow and complex. His size and strength earned respect, but his unusual behaviors, his lack of territorial aggression toward prey species, his strange scent markers that spoke of bear and wolf, created confusion. Yet gradually, his natural charisma and leadership abilities won acceptance. He became a bridge between worlds, a lion who could lead his pride but who also maintained connections that no other lion could understand. The wolf's journey was more solitary. He established territory at the boundary between the valley and the greater wilderness, becoming a guardian of sorts for the family that had raised him while also fulfilling his species' need for independence and territorial control. His howls serve as communication across vast distances, keeping him connected to his siblings while announcing his presence to other wolves in the region. Some avoided him, sensing the strangeness in his scent. Others were curious about this wolf, who showed no interest in pack formation, but whose territorial markings spoke of confidence and strength. The mustang's path led him to the high meadows and mountain passes where wild horses still ran free. His integration with a herd was the most natural of the three, his species being inherently social but less rigidly structured than the others. Yet even among his own kind, his uniqueness showed. He displayed an unusual fearlessness around predators, a calmness that influenced the entire herd's behavior. Under his subtle influence, the herd learned to coexist more peacefully with the predators in their territory, understanding through his example that not all dangerous scents meant immediate threat. Ursa remained in their valley, but she was no longer alone. Her reputation as the bear who had raised 3 species spread throughout the region, and she found herself caring for other orphan animals, not attempting to recreate her unusual family, but providing temporary shelter and guidance to creatures who had nowhere else to turn. Her valley became a known sanctuary, a place where the normal rules of predator and prey were temporarily suspended in favor of healing and growth. The siblings maintained their connection across the years. They would meet at the valley during certain seasons, their reunions joyful affairs that reinforced their bonds without constraining their individual growth. These gatherings became legendary among the local animal populations, times when a lion, wolf, and mustang would graze and hunt and play together in perfect harmony, protected by the watchful presence of the great bear who had made their family possible. Their influence spread beyond their own lives. Young animals who witnessed their interactions carried those memories into their own family structures, subtly changing the rigid territorial and social patterns that had governed the region for generations. Predators became more selective in their hunting, showing unprecedented restraint around certain species. Prey animals developed more nuanced responses to predator presence, learning to distinguish between genuine threats and the more complex relationships that the siblings' example had made possible. 7 years after they had first been found as helpless infants, their story had become legend. Wildlife researchers, still puzzled by reports of unusual animal behavior in the region, documented cases of interspecies cooperation that defied conventional understanding. They never quite solved the mystery, never quite connected the scattered reports to a single extraordinary family, but their studies contributed to a growing understanding that the natural world was far more complex and adaptable than previously believed. The lion ruled his pride with wisdom tempered by compassion, his leadership style unlike any his species had seen before. His territory bordered those of his siblings, creating a zone of unprecedented peace where different species coexisted in ways that challenged every assumption about natural behavior. The wolf became legendary as a mediator, a solitary figure whose presence could calm conflicts between rival packs, whose howls carried messages of peace rather than challenge. His territory served as neutral ground where wolves from different packs could meet and resolve disputes without violence. The mustang led his herd with the same quiet authority, but his greatest contribution was in changing how his species related to predators. Under his influence, wild horses in the region developed more sophisticated early warning systems, more effective group defense strategies, and most importantly, the wisdom to know when flight was necessary and when peaceful coexistence was possible. And Ursa, now aging but still magnificent, continued her role as the heart of their extended family. Her valley remained a sanctuary, but more than that, it had become a symbol, proof that love could transcend the boundaries that nature seemed to impose, that family could be chosen rather than simply inherited, and that the strongest bonds were not those forged by blood or species, but by choice, loyalty, and unconditional acceptance. Their story became a whispered legend throughout the wilderness, passed down through generations of animals who had witnessed their extraordinary bond. It was a story of impossible love, of boundaries crossed and barriers broken, of what could happen when hearts remained open to possibilities that logic claimed were impossible. In a world increasingly divided by human-imposed boundaries and ancient instincts, Their family stood as a testament to another way, a reminder that evolution had given all creatures not just the tools for survival, but the capacity for love that could transcend every limitation, every expectation, every rule that said different species, different natures, different destinies could never truly become one family. Their bond, forged in infancy and strengthened through years of challenge and growth, remained unbreakable, not because it was easy, but because they had chosen to make it so, again and again, in moments of crisis and seasons of peace, proving that the most powerful force in nature was not the drive to survive, but the courage to love without condition or constraint.